Hey guys, this episode was recorded many months ago, but it's a really awesome interview with Zach Moreno from SquadCast. We talk a lot about the SquadCast recent release of their version 2, but we talked about it months before it was actually released. So check out squadcast.fm to actually check out everything about the V2 release and all the new features and everything, but it's still a great interview. It's still all very relevant, so enjoy it. Oh, I didn't even ask you if you could record yourself locally, but we're using SquadCast, baby.
We got you.
You got me covered. That's classic. All right, ways. We just got to get into this. We're going to do it. Feel free to grunt, everyone. Oh, my God. Oh, dude. Dude. I've never said dude on a show before, but welcome to the Podcast Engineering Show. My name is Chris Curran. I produce podcasts for big companies, medium companies, and individuals. And every week on this show, we bring you podcast production techniques on a silver platter. We talk shop with podcast producers, engineers, and other specialists. And I have a background in the music business where I learned how to be an audio engineer in the 90s. And so I bring all that knowledge to the podcasting space, and I love it because I can teach and talk about, all kinds of advanced processing, EQs, compressors, all different mixing tricks. And from what I know, from what I learned in the music business, in podcasting, I only use, very little of that because music is a lot more intricate, obviously. But anyway, if you implement the best of what you learn here, your podcasts will sound a lot better and you'll spend less time producing them. And I really believe that you can produce really great sounding audio. I believe that. Barry, do you agree?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Of course he agrees. What is Barry? Barry, you wouldn't say no, would you?
No way. You crazy?
I'm not crazy. But anyway, Podcast Engineering School. We do a semester every quarter. If you really want to learn to engineer and produce podcasts at a professional level, that's what we teach at Podcast Engineering School. Today, Zach Moreno's here. I'm going to introduce him in a second. But I'm going to find my... Oh, what'd you say, Zach?
What's up?
No. Oh, dude. There we go. What's up? All right. He's the co-founder of SquadCast. Wait, I need to... See, I only have scary music. That's not going to work, Zach. Right?
I like EDM.
Is this going to work? He's the co-founder of SquadCast.fm. He has a podcast called Between Two Mics. He's not a scary individual, so this scary music makes no sense. But it's all I had on my iPad to play.
I wish somebody played that every time I walked into a room.
Wait, we gotta do this right. All right, Zach Moreno from SquadCast. Come on, everybody. There you go. Oh, the scary music is still playing. Oh, that's weird. All right. Tell the crowd to shut up, Zach.
Shut up.
All right, that's it.
It's good timing. Low latency.
Low latency muting. Yeah, baby. Well, Zach, I'm really happy to have you on the show finally. And we've known each other and been talking for many years now. At least like 3 years, maybe something like that.
I think so. I think we are in our third year of knowing each other, and really grateful to be a guest on your show. Thank you.
Yeah, and so we obviously talk about SquadCast all the time, and some of the other companies too on this show. And I really like what you guys are doing. I think everybody likes what SquadCast is doing. You guys have really, over the past couple years, grown and improved, and it's been a slow and deliberate journey. And actually, that's and we're gonna. I guess we should explain what SquadCast is, right?
Yeah. No.
How do you explain it to people simply?
Yeah, we make people sound like they're in the same room when they're not. And we really help improve both, the experience with recording remote conversations, but also the listener's experience of listening to audio that is recorded in different locations can sometimes be impacted by the workflow that people choose to record their audio. So we try to provide kind of that sweet spot in between for recording remotely in studio quality.
Right. So so you can think of it as, if you're not familiar with these, voice over IP services like SquadCast, you could think of it as like you're connecting on Skype, but it's also but it's also way better quality. Well, there's a million reasons you guys are better than Skype. They're not even apples to apples comparison, but
I'm glad you see it that way. It is more nuanced than that. I agree.
Oh yeah. No. Skype and the quality of Skype is completely different from what you guys are doing. But the point I was going to make, and I'm doing a terrible job of it, is that if you took something like Skype and increased the quality like a million times, and then also gave you the ability to record each person locally, that's what SquadCast is. So it's not even in the same realm of conversation with Skype. Although apparently Skype now does record. I haven't tried it.
Yeah, I've tried it. It's the same quality. It's recorded over the network, and that's the same boat that Zoom is in. So that you're, even if you have like the best internet connection in the world, it's still going to be impacted by traveling over the network. So that's where you mentioned we record everybody locally. That's how we can get a much higher quality. So there's kind of two things happening at once. There's the conversation, and that's more like Skype or FaceTime or something like that. That's what they're focused on is connecting people and providing a way to have those conversations. That is half of what SquadCast does, and that's the boring half. The other half is that we're recording everybody's audio locally while you're recording and uploading that to the cloud. So we can get the really high quality without having your guest like jump through hoops to have to install software or create an account anywhere. Or hit record and know how to be an audio engineer like you, Chris. So
yeah,
that's what we don't think those are. We don't think those are reasonable requests by hosts of their guest to install software and do those things. So we want to respect the guest time, the guest setup, and just make it so they're focused on the conversation. The host knows the recordings are safe and very high quality.
Right. So I want to ask you about the history of SquadCast and stuff. We'll talk about that later. And also who's involved in it. But right now we're going to do the speed round because everybody waits for the speed round. I think there's a drinking game going on where everyone, as soon as the speed round starts, you have to chug a beer or something. I don't know. That's what I heard. I don't know.
I think we have a beer. I don't know.
oh, gee. Well, I don't drink anymore, but okay.
Me neither.
All right. Yeah, you need. All right. So let's do the speed round. What we want to know is we want you to go through your signal chain and your workflow. So start from your mic and where is it plugged into and what interface and what computer and what software are you recording in, and then all the way through post-production too. Like what software do you use for editing, and then all the way up to uploading the MP3 to your host. Give us the quick overview.
All right, I'll go as quickly as I can. Depending on what environment I'm in, I have a Blue Yeti, and that's mostly for testing. Please don't judge. It's our most popular, second most popular mic, I think. So I have an ATR2100 and a Blue Yeti, and depending on where I'm at, I'll pick between those two mics, and then that is running into a Focusrite 2i2 audio interface, and I'm recording on my Pixelbook, which is very interesting, and because I love Chrome, so Pixelbook and SquadCast for all recordings remotely, and that gets us the quality that we had mentioned before. We get Wavve files for each individual in those conversations that are just their track in Wavve 44.1 16-bit depth, and then we pull those down to a local session in Adobe Audition and or Pro Tools. So my brother is our audio engineer, and he produces our episodes. So he kind of works between those two applications, mostly Adobe Audition these days, but he's a Pro Tools operator, and he cuts that episode together, publishes it in MP3, or bounces it to MP3, and then makes a few different pieces of content out of that with Headliner and Wavve and like transcripts and social stuff. Those get loaded up into Buffer and scheduled by Rock, my co-founder, and then we publish the actual episode on Simplecast V2, and then it's submitted. The feed is submitted to all the different directories, and we look at analytics after the fact through Simplecast.
All right, great job, man. that was a really good speed round.
Thank you.
I love it when people like the speed round is like 27 minutes long, and it's like and there's times when I don't even mention it again. Like you'd think I'd interrupt someone and be like, can we get through the speed round? But I just let them go. I don't even interrupt them because that would be awkward, wouldn't it?
You could have whole episodes just on that first part, the microphone or the interface or the hosting or whatever. So yeah, no, right. We like to keep it pretty streamlined, and we're new to podcasting. We've officially had our podcast out since January. So we're trying to keep it simple and just really consistency to start with. But also we've had 2 years to learn from masters like yourself to really set ourselves up for success. So we're trying to be very deliberate about that.
Right. Yeah. So let's briefly talk about your show, Between Two Mics. So yeah, you said you've been doing it since January, which is good. And in a way I like that because even though SquadCast has been around much longer than your show, it's good that you didn't just jump in and start doing a show just because you thought you had to do one, right? I'm assuming you waited until everything lined up and it made sense and you were started to do a show that you really wanted to do, right?
Yeah, we were both looking for a topic that we could really rally around and kind of carry us into the future. So we were looking for that and trying to get clarity on that. But also we wanted to be really kind of deliberate in stepping into it to make sure that we were starting from a really good place. The application, the platform was in a good place. And honestly, for the majority of that time, why we waited was because we were building a startup and a platform for that startup and for the podcast community. So just most of the time went towards those efforts. And then once the product was much more stabilized and we could have we both had a bunch of relationships in place with people in the industry that we could kind of tap into to record some of those conversations that we were already having. And that's the way we see it. We started to kind of, anytime we would be like, man, I wish we would have recorded that conversation with Liz Covart. Like that was like more often times we said that was kind of what started to nudge us towards like, yeah, let's do a brand, let's do this. And how does it fit in and all that stuff. So we started recording in September of 2018 and then published in the tail end of January 19.
Nice. And so you have guests on your show and you I'm assuming you just talk about podcasting and all different aspects of podcasting, right?
Yeah, what we focus on is you're right. But what we like to focus on is people who are really helping push podcasting forward in some way or another, and talking about what because podcasting is still we see it as still an emerging and fairly young medium, that there's a lot of room for definition and improvement, and it's still kind of like finding its feet. And we're talking to people who are helping define it and helping it find its feet, and really just helping move the whole medium and the content forward. So we different aspects, technology is our sweet spot in our wheelhouse, but also there's folks who are really pushing the limits of podcasting into academia, into the enterprise, into these different places where podcasting may not have had a strong kind of like foothold before. There are folks who are doing very, very innovative stuff, like the folks at Night Vale or Drew Ackerman. Like there's people who are kind of on the edges of podcasting. So we see those folks as the ones who are help pushing it forward. And you help your work, helping more people podcast and produce really high quality audio. That's also helping move our medium forward and grow our medium. So I think it's a pretty interesting thing to talk about. Like, what are the unsolved problems in podcasting? The kind of like having some of those conversations and looking at it as like, well, what could be better? What's a better way to do it? Or kind of looking at it from first principles is the conversations we're having.
Yeah, I really love that, and it's so needed to talk about all that stuff because, like you said, there's so much innovation happening, and well, there's some innovation happening, but there's the potential for innovation is huge, and there's a few things that kind of prevent all that. Like, for instance, one thing, like, Apple owning the biggest database of podcasts and the database that everyone bases everything off of.
Mm-hmm.
Like, some people don't think it should be, that should be done, or that some people don't think that a private company should be doing that. They think it should be some sort of, more public thing or
open source,
something.
Right.
But
I have some opinions on that one in particular, but yeah, I mean, there's another side to that coin where people think podcasting is very well defined and that Apple is doing the best thing for podcasting and we're just fine. Like, what's the problem here?
Exactly.
So it's very interesting the different ways people look at our medium and where we're at in that kind of in its development. But I think we can all generally agree that it's pretty early days.
Yeah, and I do agree with that argument. I mean, I know certain people, I won't mention them by name, but they've been in podcasting forever, and their attitude is just keep doing it the way we've always been doing it. It's fine. It is what it is, and just keep doing it that way. Don't try to change it. Don't try to do it better or make it better, or don't try to, anything. Don't do anything. Just do what we've always done. And
you don't need to know how long people listen to your episode. Why would you want to know that?
Right.
You don't.
But here's the thing. People like that, I understand it. They've been in podcasting since day one, and I get it. There's, the message or whatever you want to get out into the world, that's the important thing, right? It's not really about the tech. However, does this mean we're going to, then why aren't we driving around in Model T Fords from 100 years ago? Their answer is because innovation happens. You can't stop it, right?
Yeah, and it's working, and it's not. I completely agree. Like, I don't think podcasting is about the tech or that we should focus on that. But when we should talk about the tech is when it's getting in the way of us delivering our content or connecting more deeply. It's just when do we. In what ways are we running up against the tech, and is it in some ways maybe preventing us from doing something that we would like to do or get access to some data or whatever? And then be open to new ideas. It's right. Just kind of as simple as that. Nobody's saying that we should go off in this other direction and create something new from podcasting. We can't assume it's not going to evolve. So like, we'd rather be on the side of the evolution than trying to keep things the way they are.
Yeah, I mean, there literally are guys who've been in podcasting forever that have been using Skype to do interviews forever. And literally, if Zach, if before you started SquadCast, if you told them, hey, I'm going to start this company and it's going to record, basically do a double ender without the other person knowing about it, that person would tell you it's useless. That's stupid. Don't do it.
Don't waste your time.
Don't waste your time. Just use Skype. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, exactly. And the interesting thing is, like, we're not done either. Like, SquadCast, it could always still be better. There's always ways for us to improve. We're just getting started the way we see it. And I think if some of the other technology companies in our space saw things that way, then we would continue to move forward together. So right. I think the interesting thing is that with Apple, if you want to go a little bit deeper on that, I'm happy to. If you look at what they do with the App Store model, like if you draw a parallel between a podcast and an app, when you submit an app to the App Store, they have an API for that developer to get access to the analytics on the downloads, how people are using it, the ratings of their usage, all kinds of data from that, because those apps have in-app purchases. Apple charges 30% per in-app purchase, so there's an alignment there where they want to provide people that data, app developers that data, so that they can use it to make their app better, and therefore have more transactions in the app. But if you look at the parallel with podcasting, you submit the same way, right? You submit to a directory, and all of that stuff. Yet there is no equivalent API to get access to your analytics. So you have to look at it through their app. You cannot use other services to aggregate that analytic data, because there's more than one source. It's not just coming from Apple, right? You also have Google, you have Spotify, you have your hosting analytics. Like, there's all these different sources. So you need an aggregator to pull all that stuff together, because it's apples and oranges when you look at the data from these different sources. But you need an API to get that data into an aggregator. And that's something that I've talked about at length with James Cridlin and other folks in our industry, that I think that would be a very healthy thing for Apple to do. They could keep doing all the other stuff that they're doing. And we want access to that data. And then you get into situations like companies like Chartable that do provide these aggregation services because of the challenge that I mentioned before, being called out by Apple and having their hands slapped publicly for violating, the terms of service. But they are, to be clear, they are violating the terms of service, but Apple is not giving them a way to do it the right way. They're not giving them a way within the terms of service to get that data and provide it to people who want to aggregate. You also this is also the situation that Anchor, I believe, finds themselves in with the submission to Apple, automating the submission process of a feed to Apple. Apple does not give Anchor a better way to do it. So Anchor gets criticized all the time for people not being able to own their own feed, and they submit it all in this one giant Anchor feed. And then they do some magic behind the scenes to like split apart the numbers and all that stuff. I do not believe Anchor wants to do that. It's another one of these situations where Apple, and I can't speak for Anchor, but Apple does not give them or anybody else a way to do that the legit way, the way that the podcast OGs and I tend to agree with, a better way, where you own your feed. That's how it should be. That is one of the core things, I think, that is a good thing about podcasting. And it's these two examples of Apple basically saying, it's a violation of our terms of service to do it the way that you're doing it, and we're not going to give you a better way or a legit way to do it. So we're just left standing still. And that is the definition of a gatekeeper, which is one of the things that podcasting is supposed to be free of. Right. So it's just, I don't think we should talk about technology or focus on technology unless it is getting in the way of the evolution. And I see a clear example of this here. And then Apple's, they're doing it a legit way in this other parallel world of apps instead of podcasts. So they clearly know the right way to do it. They're just not. So why is that?
Well, because they don't make any money. That's why. And the apps,
Spotify,
like you said, when Apple sells apps, they make what, 30% or something, you said?
They take a 30% clip of every in-app transaction. So they're very motivated.
Wait, in-app transaction, does that mean like if someone buys an app from their store, or does that mean if I buy an app from the Apple store and then through that app I make a purchase?
Both.
Both?
Yeah. I know for sure it's 30% of in-app purchases. I believe it's something similar or the same as like that initial purchase of like $1.
Okay.
But the way apps have evolved is it's way easier now to make an app free and then just get paid through the service some other way. So they make much more money, through the App Store than they do in podcasting. But I think Spotify might have something to say about that. I don't know. I've heard things. Yeah.
Well, we shall see. And I also I've already said it publicly that I believe at some point, or it's possible. Let me say that because I don't know. I don't know enough about blockchain and that whole technology, but I wouldn't be surprised if at some point the main podcast directory is a blockchain.
I think that would be a good thing. From what I know about blockchain, I believe there are people who may or may not be working on that. It's definitely not the problem that we want to solve. But I think that Yeah, there is a possibility of another way to do things that would kind of like free us up from this situation and make it so that technology empowers us and does not get in our way. Um, so I think that I'm fine with Apple, and I think Apple has done amazing things for podcasting, and that continues to today. I just wish that they saw this as an opportunity to empower a whole community that they helped create. So it's like it's not just a matter of like creating this ecosystem for podcasts. It's also nurturing and fostering of that, and that's where they seem to have kind of like waned a little bit over time. And it's not even been constant. Like sometimes they're very interested in podcasting, like they're doing this awesome work with bringing the listening experience to the web, and then the web is still the number one way people find podcasts, so that's a good thing overall. So they are doing good work in podcasting and continue to. I just think that this API piece would move the needle quite a lot, and could be fairly easy. And I the way I look at it is they already have these APIs behind the scene. They're private. They're not public to us.
Right.
So, how many more apps could you make if, I was talking to another podcast, like listening startup here in the Bay Area, and all of the other listening apps that I've looked at and stuff, they have to scrape Apple. They have to write scraping code to go out and like scrape the internet for podcast feeds. Because like you said, they're the biggest directory for it. So you kind of go to the source and start there and work your way out. And again, these developers do not want to be writing code to scrape feeds and try to interpret this data or whatever. Apple's just not giving them a better way to do it. So how much more could our ecosystem evolve if this data were accessible? And there is a safe way to do it. And that's what I was talking about with James Cridlin. I shouldn't have access to Chris Curran's podcast engineering school analytic data or be able to submit a show to your feed, right? And vice versa. But those are problems that have long been solved in the API world, in the technology world. So, and again, Apple's doing that already with Google, or with their App Store. So, I think there's a lobby there that I think we should push on Apple a little bit more. This data is already ours, right? The only reason that they have it is because we're helping them. We're creating it. So it's our data. They just need to give us access to it. And that's very much, I have a history of open data advocacy with my work in the government. So I see some similar patterns here in podcasting.
Interesting. Were you like kind of like a man in black in the government? Anything like that?
No. No, I was actually fairly public. I maintained and developed and supported multiple like public facing web applications for the state of California in a couple different agencies. Before SquadCast, I was at the California Coastal Commission, and I had the privilege of open sourcing, opening up several public data sets through a standard API interface. And those are things like, most notably, like what if you wanted a list of all the beaches in California and you wanted to know which ones had bathrooms, which ones were disabled access, like, what time they close or whatever at the gift shop. That agency was the only one that had that data because they're their beaches. And so like, where else would this data come from if they did not provide it? And that's the way I see Apple, where they're the only ones who have this data. And furthermore, we're the ones who are giving it to them, and our listeners are the ones who are giving it to them. So I think they should just give us a legit way to get access to it. It's still theirs, but we should be able to access it. And that's going to make everybody better podcasters, because people will pay more attention. People will be able to use apps that add value to submit their shows and things like that. You won't have to go through these back doorways.
Right. Yeah, that's such a deep subject. So, all right, well, let's for the moment, let's just revisit your speed round real quick. So you got the ATR2100. That's what you're using right now. Of course, that's a great, all-purpose mic. Well, it's great in that it's all-purpose. I mean, it is a $60 or $70 microphone, so it doesn't quite stand up to the SM7Bs and RE20s of the world, but it's very good.
I got to talk with the Electro Voice folks at NAB last week, so that was a pretty cool conversation.
Last week, yes. Oh, you got to. Okay, so just so everyone knows, we're literally recording this the week after NAB. So today is April 18th. So anyway, this is coming out way after April 18th. But
my apologies, I violated the rule.
No. It's not. It's better. We talked about it. I said I was going to tell everybody that we're recording early. It's not a big deal. People get it, and this is evergreen stuff anyway, pretty much.
Yeah.
Unless within 4 months Apple opens up the API and everything changes.
Hallelujah. I hope so.
Yeah, exactly. All right, then you got the Blue Yeti. So most everyone knows about the Blue Yeti, which is a good mic, but very often used in the wrong way and therefore, making the audio not good. So how are you using your Blue Yeti when you do use it?
I have well, like today I'm recording in my apartment, and that's why I love the ATR2100. It's much more forgiving for this environment. Whereas if I were going through the Yeti in this environment, you would hear, you'd hear cars driving by. You would hear my dogs in the other room. It's too sensitive for this environment, even on a boom arm, even with a shock mount. And so the boom arm and the shock mount help. And that's one of the things that I like to tell people with the Yeti is that like a lot of the noises come from the desk. They come from your, clothes and that kind of stuff. So getting it on a shock mount and off of the table does a lot for that microphone.
Big time.
But I guess if you get the package deal, that's a little bit easier to swallow, but it's still, we have access to a recording booth at our co-working space in Oakland called Studio to Be. It's for podcasters and journalists to collaborate and work there, and is an amazing place to work. And they have a 5-person whisper booth there, and so the Yeti works fine in that environment. And they also have two Shure SM7Bs and a Focusrite, I think a 4x Focusrite in that environment.
So when you're in that whisper room with the Blue Yeti, do you just put it in the middle of the table and put it on omnidirectional and record everybody with the one mic?
We've done that. It's a little bit too big of a space for that. Okay. But it does definitely work. You just got to kind of do a little bit more in post. But we tend to like, if it's two of us having a conversation, we'll kind of just like lean forward, and that works pretty well.
Got it.
But we are not very good at doing in-person interviews. We are experts at remote interviews. So we're getting better at it's kind of fun to learn more about doing in-person interviews now that we have access to that and have really great people around us all the time. So we want to get better at doing in-person interviews, which I think is it's the reverse for most people, right? Where they're very well versed and skilled at doing in-person interviews, but this remote thing sounds very dangerous to them and all of that. So the remote interviews that we record sound much better than our in-person interviews. And I think that the episodes that I think could be better in our podcast feed currently are the ones that we've recorded in person with the Yeti and like leaning in and all that stuff. So it's kind of funny that we're coming at it from a different angle.
Yeah, that's interesting. And then you could do the old Ralph M. Rivera and get the those Audio-Technica headsets.
Those work well.
The BPH S1s, I think, or now there's a BPH S2 as well, I believe.
And they're great for guests because guests, they're not, even if you tell them good mic technique, they're not going to really stick to it past like the first 30 seconds. So those headsets are great because they can be as animated as they want to. And it's just as long as we've noticed the gaming headsets are tuned, they pick up much higher frequencies than other microphones. So those gaming ones can be a little bit too sensitive in my opinion. But the ones you like, the one you mentioned, I know Liz Covart is a fan of like I think a $30 or $35 Sennheiser headset on Amazon, and she sends to her guests, and that works really well. As I've heard the audio from that, it's good stuff.
Oh, interesting. I wonder if she's, because I also recommend, well, I used to anyway, recommend a little Sennheiser headset.
It might be the same one.
Yeah, it might be.
I know she's a fan, so she probably heard that from you.
Yeah, I tried a bunch of headsets around that price range, and like it's hard to get a good sound from, $30. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I hear you.
but that one, the Sennheiser. What was it now? I can't remember.
I'm not sure on the model, but I have also heard some gaming headsets that sounded amazing. So I just think it's kind of all over the map with those, and they don't even really tell you, what frequencies they're picking up or whatever. They're just kind of like, it works with Xbox and PlayStation or whatever. So, actually, one of our interns had this gaming headset, and I should get the model from him because it sounded really great for what it was.
Right? Yeah. And so, yeah, some of those gaming headsets, even though they're not cheap, like it might be, let's say it's $100 for a gaming headset.
Yeah.
And I haven't tried many, but like it almost seems like, I don't know, you're not really paying for the microphone quality. It's like you're paying because they might look cool or they might have a lot of bass in them. You know what I mean? Like,
they have LEDs and
I just
sync with your iPhone.
It's not like you're paying a good money for a really good microphone. I don't think that's the case. I think they just kind of throw whatever mic in there because, if you're just gaming, you're usually not even, well, I guess you could record the video, but yeah, as long as it's not terrible.
Twitch is getting bigger and bigger, so
yeah, the BPHS 1 and 2, that's like a real microphone,
Mm-hmm. What's the cheapest price for the best headset that you've come across?
Yeah. Well, I don't have a lot of experience with headsets, but that one that I can't remember was like for $30 or $35. That was like decent.
Yeah.
But besides that, I
Sennheiser?
don't know. I really don't know. Then I would get up into the, I think the BPHS 1 and 2 and stuff. I think there's around $200.
That's not bad.
So once you get up to $200, $250, $300, then you can get like then whatever headset you're getting is like, good quality.
Yeah.
Much better than $30.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't mention my headphones in the speed round. I use the Audio-Technica. I think they're the A250s, something like that. I love them. I use them a lot.
Okay. And you said you also use a Pixelbook. I don't think I've ever heard of a Pixelbook.
Yeah, so it's a Chromebook, and this particular device is one of the ones that's made by Google. So it's
okay.
Chrome OS running on like a touchscreen laptop, and it was a gift from somebody, and I love it because I'm not even aware of another way to record on Chrome OS, let alone record remote interviews. So I love it, and it's great for that reason, but it's also it's on the lower end side of like computer resources like RAM and CPU and all that crap.
Okay.
It's on the lower end of that spectrum, and we use it to test for SquadCast and make sure that it can run on devices that don't have all this crazy horsepower and stuff, because we want it to be as performant as possible so that we can get it to run on phones, right? So phones are much lower end. Even the best, iPhone 10, whatever, iPhone X is still kind of like a middle of the road tablet or something like that. So they're getting much better, and phones are supercomputers from a few years ago. So it's just a matter of time from that regard. But we want SquadCast to be as performant as possible. And if we can, record hour and a half, 2 hours long remote conversation and record on a Chrome OS Pixelbook, then we can basically record anywhere and on any kind of like lower end computer. And that way we can be more accommodating to people's guests and not have to tell them like, oh, have this much RAM or this much CPU. Like nobody knows, nobody cares. It's just it's my computer. So that's one of the things that I like it for testing. But then also I have this unfortunate situation of the generation of MacBook that I own was the first USB-C generation, and that device does not work with any third-party USB equipment. So whether that be cameras or microphones or audio interfaces, speakers, none of them work at all.
Weird.
It's basically a power. It's for power, and then some USB devices work through it, but I've not found any audio interface or microphone to work with this particular generation. And the way I understand it is it was only this generation of early 2015 that this is the case for. So I'm a little bit a weird situation where my daily driver computer, my MacBook, does not work with any of this awesome audio equipment that I'm now surrounded with. So the Pixelbook, supposed to be, quote, lower end device, the Pixelbook works with all of them. Yeah. And it's great. I just plug it in, thing turns on in like 2 seconds, and I'm recording. So yeah, I record all of my my remote interviews on SquadCast and on the Pixelbook.
Wow. And you said it has a touch screen?
Yeah, it's got a touch screen as well. It kind of is one of these ones that like folds back into a tablet, so you can kind of carry it around that way. And I wish that I could write code on this thing. That's kind of the one limitation of it is that I don't really have access to like a terminal and stuff like that. It's a super like low level. It's Chrome. If you want to surf the web and do stuff in web apps, then you're all set. But if you want to build web apps, then it's kind of another layer outside of it.
I see. So you're coding. So did you personally code SquadCast yourself?
Yes, absolutely. And we're in the process of completely rebuilding it, rewriting it, and also redesigning it.
And by the time this comes out, that might all be done.
Yeah, so that's on track for June of 2019.
Got it.
And yeah, we should have it out by then, and that is expanding. It's not just a new set of pixels and a rewrite. It's also broadening support to other browsers other than Chrome. So most notably Firefox, and then also towards mobile. So that way, if your guests are on their phone, that's something that we've not supported because of the performance constraints that I had mentioned before. We were definitely running up against those, and it would, up until recently, SquadCast would not have been able to run on a phone for more than like a few minutes of recording. So because of progressive upload and because of the way we've built the app over time, we've been making it lighter and lighter weight to run on whatever computer, and that way we can get it to work on phones with a very high degree of bulletproof certainty that you're going to get your audio.
So on a phone, then it would still run through the Chrome browser.
Yeah, Chrome or Firefox on mobile.
Okay.
We get asked all the time for people to add call-in support, so somebody could dial a number, or you could call somebody through SquadCast, and then you could record that conversation. We could absolutely do that, but we don't see that as an innovation. We don't see that in service of podcasting, because the quality is so much lower than what we're capturing. The quality we're capturing it at now. It's such a giant gap in quality, and then there's no way for us to record a phone call locally on that person's computer or phone.
Right.
There's not a way to do it. So without them, calling through an app or something like that. So
doesn't the NSA do that though? Aren't they recording all our phone calls?
They are, I believe. But also they're less concerned about quality.
Got it.
than your listeners. So yeah, it's that's the way I see it, and that's what congratulations to the team at Zoom. They're having their IPO right now, and that's amazing. But it's the way I see it is, like I mentioned, I used to work in the government, and they would want to record meetings all the time because they want to have a record of it. But really, that file it might get sent to somebody who was out sick that day, but most of the time it's just put into a folder on some server somewhere and backed up, and nobody ever listens to it.
Right.
So that is, that's a very different use case and need than podcasters who are recording for thousands of people to listen to it.
Right.
So that's where I think we can definitely coexist, because the problems that we're solving are fundamentally different.
Right. Yeah, exactly. All right. So doing post-production in Adobe Audition, but are you personally doing any of the post-production for your show?
Minimally.
Okay.
Minimally, but I have been getting much better at Adobe Audition. I took some audio editing while I was in college, as well as video editing. I went to art school, so it was kind of part of it. But I have the luxury of my brother being an audio engineer by training, and he is much more efficient than I am. But we also help like 500 plus podcasters record interviews like weekly or bi-weekly, and we, at that scale, I'm looking at audio on the regular. I'm using Adobe Audition to like kind of analyze and look at sample recordings and stuff, the tests that we're running. So I don't know that I'd call that post production, because it's not actually audio that like we're mixing and cutting together, but
Right.
it's how I use it primarily. But my brother, Vince, is doing the full production in Audition.
Got it. Right, Vince. So let's do the family roll call here. So we got Vince is the audio engineer.
Yeah, he's my older brother, black belt in Taekwondo, and just yeah.
Really? I didn't know that. Because I saw him at NAB, I would have been like, "Wah!"
Yeah, he his training partner is like a former Olympian, and
Really?
yeah, we used to have like sleepovers at their houses. Yeah, we go way back with their family.
Oh wow.
And he's also like you remember Pogs from the 90s? Those little like circular discs that people would play games to try to like get them to flip over, and it was kind of like a precursor to like something like Pokemon cards or whatever.
Okay.
Anyway, it was a game with kids in the 90s. And he's like a California champion at Pogs, and yeah, so he used to be able to do these like crazy flying kicks that you see on YouTube nowadays, and people would like fly him out to their tournaments, the Taekwondo tournaments, to like do like they'd have these opening ceremonies and stuff, and they'd have people doing stuff that you would never do in a fight,
Right.
that are pretty dangerous and pretty crazy to watch. Yeah, he was one of those kids that would flying around all over the place.
All right, cool. So Vince is your older brother. Wait, maybe we should get him on stage at like Podfest or Podcast Movement or something.
He was, yeah. I haven't seen him do a kick like that in a very long time. But
You know what?
I have proof. I have proof. I've
We'll
seen
put
him.
we'll put a watermelon on top of Dave Jackson's head,
Ooh,
and we'll be like, Vince, go for it, brother.
yeah. He was hoping to be here with us today, but couldn't get out of something. So yeah, he said to say hi, and
cool.
that yeah, he's a big fan of your work.
Yeah, and he was actually at NAB. He was walking around with one of those gimbals and his phone and taking like time lapse videos and stuff. That was cool.
Yeah, he's a very very talented photographer as well. So we've kind of not really fully like tapped into his skills there. So we've been doing more cool stuff with SquadCast, getting some content captured and in that format.
Okay, so who else is in the family lineup?
Yeah, so then my co-founder Rock, him and I go way back. We all went to high school together. So
okay, but he's not your brother.
He's not my brother, but we've known each other since like I was 16 or something like that.
Oh, cool.
And then yeah, my dad is our data and analytics guy. My sister-in-law, Vince's wife, Lindsay, is our new development intern. She just graduated with the same degree that I have, and is doing some work with us now. So really stoked about that. And then that leaves our designer Alex, who was in my wedding. I was in his wedding. Like we go way back as well. So we're all a very very tight knit group.
Cool. And how is it working so closely in a business with all these people? Because sometimes family and business and friends, like longtime friends in business, is there ever any, well, just probably obviously like normal friction, right?
Yeah, no, we challenge each other often with different, ideas and levels of scrutiny. And we all, there's also upsides that people don't talk about a lot of times. Like trust is never a factor for us because we all trust each other on kind of like a crazy level. Our challenges come from like having too much empathy for each other, right? And like that kind of stuff. So yeah, there's we also have gotten much better over time at like separating where we're like together at a family birthday or something like that, birthday dinner. It's probably not best to like review quarterly metrics on SquadCast or something like that.
Right.
So we need to be much more deliberate about like having SquadCast be SquadCast and life be life.
Cool. All right, so Vince pretty much produces your show, which is called Between Two Mics, and he does it in Adobe Audition, or sometimes he uses Pro Tools, and then he produces it in there, creates the MP3, and you're using Simplecast as your hosting company.
Yeah. The team at Simplecast, I mean, it's very hard. And I'm sure you're in the same boat, right? We know the people who run all of the top hosting platforms.
Exactly.
And they're all very friendly people. They're all awesome at what they do. And it's very hard to make a decision on which to pick. And it's kind of like splitting hairs at the end of the day. So I mean, there's even new ones coming out, and that's where it's hard to kind of be like, I'm pretty impressed with some of the stuff I've seen from Transistor and Justin Jackson and John Buddha. Like, I really love their podcast. So, that's very cool work that they're doing. And then there's also like the team at Rebel Base Media has got their hosting platform coming out soon, Captivate. So, and I love Mark and Kieran. So it's like it's gonna get harder in the future to choose. But we do have to choose one and put it there. So, that's actually my personal podcast should be coming out pretty soon here, and I think I'm gonna put that somewhere else just to get different experiences and kind of spread the love out.
Got it. Yeah, I've also thought of that. Like, if I started a new show or something, that I would just try one of these other hosting companies. Meaning try it. Like, a lot of the bigger ones, I mean, they're reputable companies and they're fine.
Absolutely.
So it's not like I'm trying it like, ooh, I hope it's good. Like, no, I'm sure it'll be fine, but it's just trying it for the experience. Yeah,
it might, there's a reason you might prefer like, Nikes over Adidas. It's not like, either is something lesser. It's just like, oh, and I might shift back and forth between like Vans and Nikes, it's, we all have different preferences for different reasons, or it's never even a fixed thing. So
yeah. And even in
these options,
I mean, even like, Rob Walsh and Todd Cochran, like they're pretty much like the Coke and Pepsi of hosting companies, but at shows they're talking. We all go out to dinner. It's like,
I love it. That's one of the things I love about podcasting is that it's collaboration, and same with like within a category. Like the top 10 shows within a category, they're all guesting on each other's shows. They all collaborate with each other. They help each other find new guests, and like I think that's something that is unique to podcasting that we should try to foster that and not be willing to set that aside. That's where else is that true? It's pretty interesting.
I agree. Yeah. I've experienced that myself in the 7+ years I've been in podcasting. That's been my experience as well. And I mean, there's only been a handful of other situations that were weird or shady, or someone was being too like unethical, unethically competitive kind of things.
Yeah. I saw a panel discussion at NAB with Rob Greenlee, Rob Walsh, Todd Cochran, and they are, quote, competitors with each other with Libsyn, Blueberry, and Spreaker, but they're the best of friends and awesome, and they're all advocating generally for podcasting. And that's the thing about podcasting is we know that the pie is growing rapidly, so it's not really only in an ecosystem where the pie hasn't grown a lot or in a while do people start like looking to their left and right and being like, okay, if we want to be more successful, it's like a zero-sum game, right? We have to take something from someone else to gain anything. That is not how it is in podcasting because of how rapidly it's growing, and there's still so much room for growth that I think we're all really good friends in helping move the medium forward, and that's what we'd like to focus on.
Yeah, it is. It's just so cool, right? The whole. In fact, that's literally one of the reasons why I like podcasting so much, is because of the industry, because of the people, because of the friends I've made. It's like it is like an extended family. It doesn't just feel like, oh, this is just, something else I'm going to do. And
no, not at all. And I really want to extend gratitude to those 3 individuals that I just mentioned, Rob, Walt Greenlee, and Todd Cochran, because I think a lot of this comes from the example that they set,
Right.
and being kind of that early generation that helped define podcasting and get it to where it is now, and is helping get it to where it's going. I think that example that they set on an ongoing basis sets precedence for the rest of us to collaborate and see things like that. And I really want to thank them for that. So thank you guys.
Yeah, thanks to those 3 guys and so many others. Like
Totally.
so many others. Yeah.
So Simplecast, you mentioned Simplecast. We chose them, right? So Simplecast is awesome. The team is awesome. I was really impressed with everybody who's involved there. Addie and Esprit, Mike, they're all amazing people who are, in their own right, a big part of the community. And then Simplecast is kind of the Megatron of all of their efforts in the community. And for me, we talked for 20 minutes in this conversation about APIs, and so Simplecast API was something that was important to me to grow with and give us flexibility into the future. And having talked to Brad and some of their more technical folks over there at Simplecast, I was super impressed. And I think, hands down in the API category, which I get most people do not care about. But I do, and we do, because we're a technology company. So that was an interesting constraint, was like analytics. We wanted to be very forward leaning and supportive of the latest standards with IAB2. And then also the analytics, the API to go along with it. So those were the 2 factors that ultimately kind of set it apart for us. But that's they're a great team to work with, and great people on the inside of that company that are doing good work.
Cool. Yeah, I spent some time talking with Addie at NAB, and she really respects Simplecast as a company and their ethic and their everything. So that's really good.
Yeah, and she's helping drive a lot of stuff forward, and I feel very comfortable about that. I have a great, she really understands podcasting and podcasters, and if Simplecast, engineering wise and design wise and all that stuff is listening to the community, they have a really great voice of the community internally that they can help sanity check these decisions that they're making against. And to me, that says a lot about them, their leadership, how they make decisions, how they see the world. Like Addie and Esprit and Mike and even Janine and Brad, the co-founders there, they're at a lot of these community events and talking to people. And that's important. And for us, it's equally important to us. And I would say Harry Duran is the closest thing we have to an Addie who has been working with SquadCast since super early days, since we met actually at Podcast Movement in 2017 in Anaheim. We've been working with Harry Duran that whole time on a very regular basis to help inform the direction of our product. So I am very grateful for Harry and folks like yourself in the community who I can text, Chris Curran and get very deep engineering questions answered that can help inform the direction we go. So thank you, Chris.
Yeah. I'll never forget, like back in those early days, I tried SquadCast, and I think you guys at that point were recording in Wavve file at like 24-bit, like maybe 96K. I don't know. It was like it was a huge file, and the audio engineer inside of me was like, yes.
Yeah, it's possible.
But then it was like, oh, that might be a little too high resolution.
Yeah, it's a sweet spot between the highest quality possible but there's some other constraints as well. Being able to make sure that you always get that audio. It's never going to have artifacts on it, even in computers where they don't have some crazy, CPU or resources or whatever. There's multiple factors that we like to think about that go into it, and quality is the one that we're shooting for, and it's kind of the combination of all these other factors. But the quality is not going to matter if there's distortion because your CPU was overclocking.
Right.
The quality is not going to matter if your guest couldn't connect to you in your session.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where there's some of these other constraints. But that's definitely early days. We've tried a lot of stuff, and that's where we've talked about is we've tried many different encoders. We've tried many different ways to slice this process up, and we've been feeling very rock solid about it since we rolled out progressive upload in like October of last year. So we've seen all kinds of crazy growth in recording and everything since then. So
yeah, and I respect that you guys try stuff and do stuff and like, hey, let's put it out a great quality audio, and you just tried it, and so I respect that because that's how you're learning, right? Like, so over these last 2+ years, whatever it is, you've learned so much. It's not like you just, decided, okay, this is, we're going to go with a mediocre audio quality and that's it. And then you never revisit it, right? You guys did the opposite. You tried 10, 20, 30 different things. And I respect that because that's how you whittle it down to something that works, right?
Thank you. Yeah, that's definitely how we see it. We do not have the answers or know the answers. We try stuff and then we see what works. We talk to people. We listen, more importantly, and that's one of the things that I think has been a great way for us to work with the community. Is we have the huge benefit of being in an industry where people talk for a living and they tell you what they want. So we have to listen and get out of their way and build what they're asking us for. So, I think it's just we try to be as good as we can with listening, and that has really helped propel us, to where we are now. It's propelling us to where we're going in the near future with V2, with video recording. These are all things that have been asked of us. We had no plans in the beginning to add video recording, or even have video in the conversation, right? So these are things that can be tied back to direct feedback from one or more people that really kind of set us on the course that we've taken.
Right. Barry, who's here with me, just slipped me a note, and he said he knows a couple things that you need, that SquadCast needs.
Right on.
Yeah. All right. Barry, step up to the mic. Just tell him what is Zach and Vince and Rock and the whole team, what are they going to need to really, get SquadCast to the next level?
You're going to need a couple of horses, or a couple of mules.
I had to do it.
Did you see the Joe Rogan Elon Musk interview?
Some of it, yeah. Is that a joint?
They just kind of add at the end. It's just kind of like, love is the answer. I thought you were gonna say it. It's just like, yeah, love is the answer.
Oh. So I have one more question for you, but before we finish, but I just wanted to mention before everybody clicks off of this episode that Zach Moreno, co-founder of SquadCast, the website is squadcast.fm, and your show is called Between Two Mics, and so everyone can go check that out, subscribe, and check it out. And
we love to do like sample recordings with folks. So if you reach out to us on social, we'll jump into a session with you, record a few minutes, and then you can get a sample of what your guest would sound like if you were not, if you were recording on SquadCast. So it's one of those things where it's just kind of like it ends up feeling magical. Like I think we've talked about this, Chris, where you'll hear like distortion in the conversation because somebody's kid is like streaming Netflix in the other room. But then when you go and like listen to that WAV file that we helped you record, that distortion's just not there.
Yeah,
and that's where we think there's just something you got to experience for yourself. So hit us up. I'm available on socials and SquadCast FM. So we like to be, like I said, we like to be part of the community. So hit us up. We'll get a sample recorded with you.
There you go. That reminds me, I pretty soon, and maybe even by the time this comes out, I'll have already done it. I want to have a contest for the worst quality audio that someone could submit to me.
Yeah. I've heard some stuff on like This American Life records phone calls of people like talking about stories that they've had in, relative to whatever story they're telling that week, and they record them over the phone.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, some of those can get pretty gnarly.
Yeah.
And they're known for their quality. So I want to challenge the team at This American Life to use SquadCast.
I'm gonna do it. I mean, there's got to be a bunch of maniacs in my audience that could record some horrific audio. I can't wait. I'm gonna do it.
There's probably some stuff I can pull out of our archives from some of our, our early tests, right?
Well, I actually want the person who's submitting it has to be their voice. And they should be I should have them do is talk about the podcast engineering show. Like do a little promo for the podcast engineering show.
Yeah, just like record it across a freeway into a mobile phone.
Just something disgusting. Oh, I would love it.
Just like, nah, you gotta separate the spectrum to be able to hear it.
Yeah. Oh, I just want the worst thing you can send me. All right. Anyway, we're gonna do that. So my last question for you, bro, is because it's happened to me and I know it's happened to others. So let me just first say that when using SquadCast, there's very rarely an issue. Very rarely. In fact, you might never even have one, right? But because I've had one issue or two in the 2 years, and that was in all beta mode and all that. But when me or anyone else tries to get in touch with you guys at SquadCast to help fix something, how the hell do you get back to people so fast and fix the problem so fast? It's like almost shocking. How quickly you guys can do that? Who is someone sitting there waiting for these emails or something?
Well, we are I really appreciate you saying that, because that's something that we saw as an opportunity to set ourselves apart, like very early on. The internet is littered with people saying the exact opposite about some of the other options out there, and I find that very sad, because each one of those was a podcast that could have been. An episode, a guest that could have been, and there's a lot of opportunity cost out there for those missed opportunities. So, the way we see it is we never want to impact somebody's production calendar. We never want to impact. We always want to be very respectful of guest time. We want to be very respectful of the host time. It takes so much work to do a podcast and to get a guest onto your show, that the last thing you want is for whatever tool, whatever platform you're using to get in the way. So we knew that very early on that we wanted to be highly available to help people connect and get high quality recordings no matter what. And that even in the absolute worst case scenario, we can always recover from that and get you audio that is workable and can publish and to the degree that your listeners it should be transparent to your listeners. It shouldn't, an episode's not going to come out later because you had to work with us on getting a backup. The quality is not going to be lower. So let me take that back. The quality is lower because we recorded over the network. So just, Chris, I'm all about transparency.
Right.
But it is a backup, right? So the way we see it is our backups are as good, or we find better than Zoom or Skype's primary recordings.
Right.
But they're in that same category of recorded over the network. So if somebody's, tethering from a phone on a college campus, that could impact the quality of that recording.
Right.
So, and that is not a backup that your guest needs to lift a finger to do or get.
Right.
So, you basically just send us a message, and my brother Vince, our audio engineer, goes and gets that audio, QAs it, and then sends it to you. And the only real thing that sets us back as far as like the timing of helping even faster is that Vince still works a day job, because we're a bootstrap startup.
Holy cow.
So yeah, he like Rock and I, for the first year and a half we were working on SquadCast, we were both full-time and at day jobs. Vince and Alex continue to be for the next few months. So if anybody ever has to wait for a backup, it's because Vince is like, okay, I'll do it when I get home from work, and I'm not plugged in right now, but I'll get it to you. So I'm actually, just before we got on the session here, we are very close to automating that whole process. That Vince has been doing that and documenting it, and it's gotten so refined to the point where we have a tool that he's using to push a button, and then we get those backups, and it sends him an email instead of the person directly, because we're still kind of testing it. But it's even going to be like, you can get your own backups is what it's about to be. And we're super stoked about that, because as we grow, right, like we can't just add a second and third and fourth Vince. We could, but we would continue to need to do that to scale. So
and it'd be hard to find that many black belts anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So that's where we always knew we wanted to automate it, but we intentionally kept it a human process, because we wanted to QA, we wanted to make sure that people were happy, and that a lot of times those are opportunities to completely do a 180, and somebody going, I'm going to cancel SquadCast because I missed an episode, my client just fired me, I don't have anything to publish, whatever. We turn that around and say, we got your back no matter what, 20 minutes, and we'll get that audio to you, and nobody will know the difference. Right. So we do that. We do that all the time. And there's actually an episode on Between Two Mics where we talked to Vince. Rock and I talked to Vince about how we started before backups, like what we did, how we started adding backups. We used to record them locally, and then your guest would have to jump through some hoops to get it to us. That didn't work, so we threw that out in like 2 weeks or something. And now, your guest doesn't know the difference. Nobody knows the difference, and you get your audio super quickly. And we're very proud of that. So I'm really glad that you take notice of that, and we try, make every effort to provide support as rapidly as possible. And just, again, transparency, our response times are measured in minutes, not months or weeks or days or whatever, right? So minutes. That's one of the ways that we've been able to work very closely with the podcast community and really gain some trust there.
Yeah, for sure. I said that was the last question, but I lied. Did you?
A good question.
Did you name your show Between Two Mics because of Zach Galifianakis's Between Two Ferns?
It's one of the reasons. It is one of the reasons, and I'm the other Zach, right? I'll never be on that level. Maybe.
Oh, I didn't even put that together. Holy cow!
Well, the way we see it is like, SquadCast is what's between two mics in this situation, right? So it's kind of like, and we love to use emojis to communicate to people, just in general, but also like what SquadCast is and how we do it. So we love to use like 2 microphone emojis with the sparkles in between. So that's kind of where it came from. Was like, okay, we're the sparkles in between.
Yeah.
But so it was available. It's short. It matches, and we love our logo. People love our logo, so it gave us a chance to use that as well.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. All right, Zach, we're done, man. Great job. Thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been awesome.
Thank you, Chris, for having me. Much appreciated.
But I got to ask you to do one more thing. You have to yell, "Sound great." All right.
Sound great.
Are you willing?
Yes.
Are you able? Come on, give it everything. And you, driving in your car or jogging or listening at home, you can yell too. I want everyone to yell, "Sound great." Ready? Go! Sound great!
You walk away from me well, and you can't play that part so well. Why do you play it out on me now? You like to lose control well. It's quite a feeling, isn't it? They're floating, drifting down now. You tell me that you found something good. you found something better. How should I respond to that? Oh yeah, I say that.